Mia Reynolds had always preferred worlds that didn't exist. While other kids in her class obsessed over dances, school gossip, and social media trends, she found comfort in strategy games, fictional maps, and long hours tinkering with simulated civilizations. Her room, tucked under the angled roof of her family's two-story house in Oregon, was a cozy chaos of old comic books, glowing monitors, and half-finished drawings of alien cities she imagined for fun. At 12 years old, she was already being called the weird girl at school. Not that it bothered her, she liked being different. That particular Tuesday afternoon, while the rain drizzled lazily outside her window, Mia sat cross-legged on her desk chair, eating a bowl of cereal for dinner. She had finished her homework early, mostly out of habit, and was now browsing a lesser-known gaming forum where modders and indie developers shared experimental builds. One post caught her eye, not because of its title, which simply read Project GD, Public Test Key, but because of the strange language in the description. No install, no login, one mind, one empire. You lead, we follow. She squinted at it and refreshed the page, expecting it to be taken down or flagged, but it remained. There were no comments, no likes, just a small download button below the cryptic blurb. Normally she was cautious about clicking unknown links, but this wasn't a dark web trap or a suspicious .x. It was a direct download of what looked like a .pg file. Curiosity outweighed her hesitation. She clicked. In seconds, her screen went black, then blinked into a deep star field, stars slowly drifting across the monitor as soft ambient music hummed in the background. The words Galactic Dominion, Test version 01 appeared in elegant font. No tutorial, no intro video, just a prompt. Choose your designation, assume control. Mia leaned in, heart thudding. She typed in her favorite username, StellarWolf32, and pressed enter. Immediately, a holographic map unfolded in front of her, complete with orbital rings, planetary systems, resource lines, and data pulses zipping between nodes like living veins. It was beautiful. And it didn't look like any game she'd ever played. The voice, not robotic, but smooth and deep, spoke through her speakers. Command link established. Welcome, strategist. Okay, that's spooky, she mumbled, glancing over her shoulder out of instinct. She was alone. She navigated the interface, marveling at the details. A blinking notification informed her that the empire she was taking control of, known as the Thalkesh Dominion, had suffered political fragmentation after the death of their last Empress. Multiple alien factions were now struggling for dominance, and a mysterious protocol had been enacted to find a new ruler through external initiative. Probably AI-driven randomization, Mia whispered, not realizing the words external initiative were not just flavor text. Without realizing the weight of her actions, she began issuing her first commands. She rerouted starship patrols from hostile borders to trade corridors, formed a temporary truce with a smaller rebel world by offering surplus resources, and even began terraforming efforts on a moon listed as potentially volatile. She had no idea what most of these things meant in a real-world context, but her game instincts guided her. Every time she made a decision, the world responded in real time. Supply lines shifted, alien advisors gave briefings, and the Empire's morale bar ticked upward. Hours passed. Rain tapped harder against her window, but she didn't notice. The cereal had gone soggy and untouched. Her fingers danced across the keyboard with intensity, her eyes flicking from resource charts to political dashboards to sector threat levels. Unlike other games, this one had no pause button. Events flowed continuously, with or without her. At one point, she received a message in glowing orange text, probability of collapse decreased by 27.4% since your arrival. Strategic efficiency above expected parameters. Wow, thanks game, she muttered sarcastically, unsure if it was just programmed praise or something more dynamic. The longer she played, the more the simulation seemed to react to her style. Her peace-first approach stabilized unrest in the outer colonies. Her decision to invest in education instead of military buildup led to a sudden scientific leap that accelerated fusion research. And when a crisis erupted in one of the sectors, an asteroid storm threatening a mining fleet, she used her knowledge from another game to redirect a gravitational buoy, saving the operation entirely. She felt good, like she was solving problems that mattered. Eventually, her mother's voice called up the stairs. "Mia, it's bedtime." 10 more minutes, she yelled back, unwilling to tear herself away. "Make it 5. Mia groaned and glanced at the in-game clock. She hadn't realized it had been over 4 hours. She issued a few more commands, queued diplomatic tasks, and exited to the main menu. Only there was no quit button. The screen faded to black on its own. Just before it did, one final message appeared. Connection acknowledged. Presence recorded. Destiny unfolding. The window closed. The game disappeared from her desktop. Even the download file was gone. She blinked, confused. She searched her files. Nothing. Not even a cached version. "What kind of joke is this?" she murmured, half irritated, half impressed. Still, she felt something deep inside. Something stirring. A strange pride. Like she hadn't just played a game but guided something real. She shook it off and went to bed, thinking about the strange alien voices, the glowing maps, and the way the entire system had seemed alive. She didn't know that light years away, inside a fortress of crystal and void, an assembly of sentient beings, tall, luminous creatures with faceted skin and fire-colored eyes, watched her final moves in silence. One of them, wearing a crown of folded starlight, turned to the others and spoke through the collective neural channel of the Thalkesh High Council. "She is the one." The others nodded. The Empress had been found. The next morning, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that something about the previous night hadn't been ordinary. As she ate toast at the kitchen table, her mind kept drifting back to the images of star systems, alien advisors, and especially that final message, destiny unfolding. She tried telling herself it was just a clever line from an experimental game, maybe something coded by an ambitious indie developer, but the file had vanished, and even her browser history showed no sign of the download page. Still, she dismissed the weirdness with the same logic she used when her tablet once updated by itself. Tech glitches were just part of the digital world. After school, she dropped her backpack on the floor, kicked off her sneakers, and hurried to her room. A part of her hoped the game had returned. When she turned on her monitor, she half expected disappointment, but the screen lit up with the familiar Starfield background and a now recognizable title, Galactic Dominion, direct interface ready. This time, she didn't hesitate. She clicked. There was no loading screen, no boot up. Within a second, she was back inside the system. Though something had changed. The layout was sleeker, the visuals sharper. The Thalkesh Dominion, once barely held together, now gleamed with new vigor. The dashboard pulsed with dozens of updates. The same voice spoke again. "Strategist, welcome. New crises await your guidance." She grinned. "You're creepy, but I like you." A new cluster of issues unfolded across the interface. A brewing trade war between the merchant moon Veiltor and the industrial station Nerion 4. A refugee fleet requesting aid near the borders, and a diplomatic insult exchanged between two regional governors threatening to destabilize 4 systems. Mia cracked her knuckles and got to work. First, she tackled the trade war. She skimmed through market analytics, tariffs, and cultural tensions. Veiltor had increased export prices for rare minerals by 400%, pushing Nerion 4 into a supply panic. Instead of sending punitive ships, which the system suggested, she issued a simple yet radical policy, rerouting lesser-used mining vessels from the Arcan Drift to bridge the gap in Nerion 4's supply line. She also granted Veiltor exclusive trade rights with a smaller farming world, creating a new income stream for them and avoiding direct conflict. Next, the refugee fleet. Most of the in-game advisors suggested denying entry or establishing quarantine zones, but Mia remembered something she'd read once about how fear spreads faster than disease. She ordered full medical scans, created temporary housing modules by converting old cargo freighters, and broadcasted welcome signals with translated messages of hope. The morale bar ticked upward. The threat gauge dropped. Then came the governors. The 2 alien leaders had insulted one another in a high-stakes council meeting. The logs displayed the exchange in a cold font, but the implications were severe. One had accused the other of breeding with lesser lineages, which even Mia, in her limited understanding of Thalkesh politics, knew was a grave offense. The standard protocol offered 3 choices: force, both to step down, punish the instigator, or dissolve the entire council chamber and reset elections. She did none of those. Instead, she set up a public performance trial, a diplomatic tradition she discovered buried in the game's archive. It hadn't been used in generations. She designed the challenge herself. Each governor would be assigned a defense project for their home planet and judged by the population's satisfaction scores after 1 week. The one who failed would formally apologize on a galactic broadcast. The program accepted her command. Within seconds, new construction lines spun into action. Approval ratings began updating in real time. Mia leaned back, impressed with her own creativity. She hadn't realized how late it had gotten until her stomach growled. She paused the game. Not by pressing any button, but simply by getting up. The screen dimmed and softly displayed the words, "Processing decisions." Awaiting re-engagement. Downstairs, the kitchen was empty. Her parents weren't home from work yet. She pulled out a frozen pizza and shoved it into the oven, setting the timer before collapsing onto the couch. Her mind still buzzed with thoughts of orbital patrol routes and population displacement graphs. She tried switching her attention to a TV show, but it all seemed so bland in comparison. Back upstairs, 20 minutes later, her desk glowed softly. The interface had updated. Population satisfaction, up 9%. Trade routes, stabilized. Diplomatic risk index, reduced by 13%. Her moves had worked. As she scrolled, something new appeared. A glowing blue icon pulsing in the corner of the screen. When she clicked it, a window opened labeled, "Encrypted high-channel access granted." A message appeared, short but clear. "You have been observed. Continue shaping the Dominion." She blinked. It didn't look like system-generated dialogue. It wasn't in the same stylized font as the rest of the UI. She clicked again, but the window vanished. Her heart began to race, and for the first time a ripple of fear crawled under her skin. But rather than stop playing, she pulled her chair closer. The next task was unexpected. A strange, red-marked system called HFY-73 had gone dark. All communications were lost. The screen advised sending a recon ship or writing it off as a hostile anomaly. Mia, intrigued, chose to investigate. She accessed the mission panel and issued a launch sequence. The probe she selected had an AI subsystem she hadn't seen before, labeled Observer Variant 9. As the digital vessel approached HFY-73, her screen began to blur. Static filled her headphones. Then, a flash of white. When the interface returned, something was different. The map had changed scale. The stars no longer looked like generic background dots, but instead glowed with vibrant detail. And near the system she'd probed, a video feed opened. For the first time, she saw something move. Something not part of the interface, but something real. A Thalkesh being stood in the frame. He had crystalline skin that shimmered with light from within, and vertical slits for pupils that flared as he stared into what looked like a camera. He did not speak. He merely looked forward. Then the screen went black again. Mia sat frozen, the room around her suddenly colder, quieter. That hadn't been a cutscene. That had been a transmission. She didn't move for several minutes. The game had never been a game, and someone was watching. Mia didn't sleep much that night. The image of the shimmering alien figure lingered behind her eyes, replaying like a glitch on a loop. She had tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was part of an advanced augmented reality feature, or some developer's Easter egg meant to impress hardcore players. But the silence in her room, the hum of her computer cooling down, and the fading echo of her own held breath told her it had been more than that. She knew it instinctively. That thing, that being had seen her. By morning, the thought had twisted into something deeper. Responsibility. She sat at her desk in a gray hoodie with the sleeves bunched around her wrists, sipping juice with one hand while clicking through diplomatic reports with the other. The interface had changed again. New features had been added. Logbooks from regional sectors, encrypted dispatches from alien commanders, and a glowing vertical bar that pulsed with the label Loyalty Index. It wasn't the kind of loyalty she expected from a game. It read like the political temperature of an entire species. Several governors had flagged communications requesting emergency access to restricted fleet protocols. One of them, Governor Xyrel of the Outer Ring colony Draxion 8, had begun deploying ships without approval. The logs indicated she had classified the act as preemptive planetary shielding, but Mia knew what that meant. Xyrel was preparing for war. A cascade of updates followed. Reports of resource hoarding, starport lockdowns, civilian movements disrupted near the Encore border. It was the digital smell of something rotten. Mia clicked through each alert with increasing urgency, her fingers tapping faster than her thoughts. The empire she'd carefully stabilized was slipping, not because of a foreign threat, but from something internal. The core screen flashed crimson. A new event had triggered. Instability threshold exceeded in 3 sectors. A small symbol appeared, a broken crown. The meaning was unmistakable. A coordinated uprising was imminent. Mia's heart thudded. Her first instinct was to move fleet deployments to those sectors and assert military presence. The system even offered that as a recommended response, but she hesitated. She had seen what heavy-handed tactics did in other games: escalation, backlash, chaos. Here, it felt like the stakes were real. If she miscalculated, she wouldn't lose a round. She might lose a civilization. Instead of mobilizing ships, she accessed the internal communications panel. She selected a diplomatic envoy ship called Hope's Gaze and customized a new message. It was simple, almost too simple. "We hear your concerns. We will speak. Not as rulers, but as kin. Await our envoy." The message was sent across 6 sectors in every dominant dialect. Then she rerouted her science vessels to broadcast signal boosts along the communication relays, ensuring the message couldn't be jammed or distorted. Finally, she assigned one of the more respected Thalkesh figures, an old military strategist turned philosopher named Kovalon, as envoy lead. The screen dimmed, updates paused, awaiting planetary reception. The hours that followed were torturous. Mia forced herself away from the desk and paced her room, chewing the end of her sleeve. Outside, the wind rattled the gutters. The world kept moving, but hers had narrowed into a single question. Would it work? When she returned to her desk, her breath caught. Reception confirmed. Hostilities paused. Governors open to discussion. Mia fell back into her chair with a gasp of relief, then immediately leaned forward again. The loyalty index bar had stopped dropping. Instead, it blinked steadily at neutral. A new transmission opened, a live feed. The image was fractured and blurry at first, but then it stabilized. Governor Ziriel appeared on screen. She had the elongated, glass-like skull of a Thalkesh, but unlike others Mia had seen in still images, her eyes were ringed with weariness. She did not bow. She didn't even blink, but she spoke in a slow, measured tone through translated text that scrolled beneath the video. "Your voice is not the voice of the old emperor, and yet, we have listened. We will delay our rebellion." Mia stared at the screen. She wasn't sure if her hands were cold or shaking or both. The words hit her like bricks, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. She had prevented a civil war. A child with no formal training, using empathy instead of force, had calmed a system on the verge of collapse, and she hadn't even left her room. The next notification she received was unexpected. Instead of a system-generated update, it came as a direct message. The sender was anonymous, but the message was stark. "Control through kindness," noted, further analysis underway. She leaned back, breath shallow. Someone was tracking not just her actions, but her methods. The game continued, but it no longer felt like a game at all. With the uprising contained, she turned her attention to rebuilding trust. She ordered food shipments to Draxion 8, not just supplies, but cultural imports, music archives, artistic tools, and old planetary records. She knew that no rebellion could gain momentum if people remembered what unity felt like. She used education fleets to reintroduce shared histories to colonies showing dissent. She even launched a memorial satellite, one of her own design, that projected images of past Thalkesh leaders, woven together with ancient poetry. It orbited each troubled planet for 3 days before passing on to the next. Her moves weren't flashy, they weren't violent, but they were remembered. Soon, the loyalty index rose. Reports came in of spontaneous peace festivals on once hostile moons. Starports reopened. Resource trade resumed. Even Zyril, the firebrand governor, sent a personal commendation through the military archive, praising the strategist's restraint and intellect. Then the most unexpected thing happened. The screen displayed a new icon, an emblem Mia hadn't seen before, a diamond-shaped crest with 3 rings around it, glowing gold. A voice, clearer than before, spoke. By ancestral code, when a leader averts civil ruin through reason, She shall be marked for evaluation. The words filled her ears, but they also echoed in her bones. A wave of light swept across her interface, and the emblem burned itself into her dashboard. From that moment forward, everything changed. The interface reconfigured itself. Previously locked features opened, archives of Thalkesh history, cultural databases, and strategic command systems normally hidden behind redacted files. She was no longer simply playing. She had been recognized, and somewhere far beyond Earth, the Council of Observers voted. 12 minds, one decision. Mia Reynolds, age 12, Earthborn, daughter of no political lineage and holder of no royal name, had just passed the first test of succession. For the next 2 days, Mia lived between two realities. During school hours, she was the quiet girl in the back row who kept her hoodie pulled up and her notebooks neat. She answered when called on, ate lunch alone beneath the basketball bleachers, and rode the bus home in silence. To her classmates, she was invisible. But in the evenings, when her door was closed and the light from her monitor cast alien shadows across her room, she became something else entirely. She became a ruler. The Thalkesh Dominion no longer looked like a game map. It looked like a living organism. Its territories pulsing with culture, its trade lines like arteries, its stars like flickering nerve endings. Every night she opened the system, more features unlocked. She could now access detailed biological profiles of the Thalkesh species, atmospheric charts of terraformed moons, even real-time video feeds from planetary observatories. She used them all. She studied the alien social hierarchies, learned their symbolism, memorized their economic structures and emotional bonding patterns. She had never studied this hard for anything at school. But this wasn't school. This was something she could feel in her spine. Something real. But then something changed. On the third evening after the emblem appeared, the game didn't open as usual. Instead of the serene starfield, her screen blinked twice and showed static. Mia frowned and tapped the keyboard. The hum of her processor rose unnaturally. The cursor jumped. Then the lights in her room flickered. She froze. The monitor flashed, and her entire screen turned bright white, then black. Then a glowing message scrawled across in pulsing blue script. Reality layer breached, confirming presence. She pushed back in her chair, heart hammering. What? The screen pulsed again, this time showing an outline, an orb of geometric panels rotating slowly in space. Her ears picked up a soft, humming sound, but it wasn't coming from her speakers. It was coming from the room itself. Before she could move, her bedroom ceiling lit up. Tiny pinpricks of blue shimmered into being above her head, forming a star map, one she recognized. It was the same layout she had navigated for weeks. Only now it wasn't inside her computer. It was inside her room. A beam of soft white light shot down from the ceiling and scanned her body. She gasped and stumbled back, knocking over her chair. The scan ended as quickly as it began, and the monitor came back to life. The game interface reappeared, but this time it wasn't flat. The edges curled outward in 3 dimensions, revealing a holographic control panel she could touch. Her fingers hovered uncertainly above the glowing tabs. She pressed one. A new message appeared. Observer presence confirmed. Physical interface stabilized. Then came a voice. Not through headphones, not through her computer. From inside her mind, Mia Reynolds, you have crossed the threshold. She spun around, looking for speakers, a projection source, anything. But the room was unchanged. The voice echoed again, calm and without accent. It was not a voice designed to comfort. It was a voice designed to convey meaning. Command interface between your species and the Thalkesh Dominion has reached Phase 3. Temporal locality breach authorized. Neural synchronization active. She didn't understand half of it, but the words neural synchronization made her skin crawl. What are you? She whispered aloud. The reply was instantaneous. We are the sentience lattice. We exist between decision and consequence. You made choices, we observed them. You are now part of the structure. She backed toward the wall, trembling. But I'm just a kid. I didn't agree to this. You initiated protocol consent by sustaining interaction beyond 90 hours. No coercion was applied. You were tested. You passed. No one told me it was real. You chose. You led. your mind aligned. The lights in her room blinked. The holographic control panel dissolved into a flurry of symbols, rotating around her. Then the voice became softer. Fear is logical, so is potential. The room dimmed. Her monitor displayed something new, a message with a countdown. Transit sequence, 0:02 and 17 seconds. She didn't know what transit meant, but her instincts screamed at her to run. She grabbed her phone and bolted downstairs, calling out for her mother. "Mom! Mom, something's wrong!" No answer. She ran into the kitchen. Empty. The car was still in the driveway, but the house was silent. She turned on the lights. Nothing happened. Power was out. The whole neighborhood, from what she could see through the kitchen window, was dark. She ran back to her room, not knowing what else to do. The countdown was still ticking. Transit sequence, 0:01 and 8 seconds. She shouted at the screen. "Stop it! I don't want to go!" The voice returned, quieter now. "Leadership is not chosen. It emerges. You are ready." The light from the monitor flared so brightly she had to shield her eyes. A deep vibration filled the room. Her body lifted half an inch off the floor. Her breath caught in her chest. Everything, her books, her lamp, the mug on her desk, began to float. Then it stopped. The light vanished. The screen went black. The holograms collapsed. Everything fell. Her chair hit the floor. Her knees gave out and she collapsed with a gasp. The silence that followed was deeper than anything she had ever known. Her monitor blinked back to life with a single sentence. Transit postponed. Evaluation complete. Prepare for interface arrival. The screen went dark again. Permanently this time. Leah stared at the black monitor. Her heart still raced. Her hands were cold. Her legs shook. She knew in every fiber of her being that something irreversible had happened. She had been seen, chosen, judged, and not by anything human. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, watching the stars. She had once played strategy games to escape her world. Now she wasn't sure if her world was ever hers to begin with. The stars outside Mia's window remained still, uncaring, scattered across the dark Oregon sky like they always were. But she knew now that they watched her. She hadn't turned on her computer since the event. Her room was dark. Her desk remained untouched. The silence around her was thick and unbroken. She had waited for something to happen. Anything to give her clarity. A sound, a flicker, a message. Nothing came until it did. At precisely 3:03 a.m., the air in her room shimmered like a curtain of heat above asphalt. No light, no sound, just a sudden pressure, like the atmosphere had exhaled. Then a low pulse throbbed in the walls, not mechanical, but organic, like a heartbeat echoing from far beneath the earth. She stood, blanket falling from her shoulders. The pulse grew louder. Her closet door clicked open, not by wind, not by her. She took a cautious step forward. Inside, the space had changed. Where there had once been hanging hoodies and piles of clothes was now a void, a doorway, a rift carved into the fabric of her world, opening into nothingness. And beyond it, a glow, soft and violet, pulsing like breath. A shape emerged, tall, luminous, not quite solid. The Thalkesh emissary stepped forward, bending low to pass through the opening. His crystalline form shifted with every movement, reflecting unseen stars in his facets. His eyes, shaped like vertical ellipses and glowing a soft gold, fixed upon her with reverence. He knelt. "Mia Reynolds of Earth," he said in her mind, without moving his lips. "Daughter of origin, strategist of unity, you are called." She swallowed. "Called to what?" "To lead." She backed a step. "I didn't ask for this, nor did the seed ask to sprout," he said gently. "Yet it reaches toward the sun." She gripped her wrist, unsure whether she wanted to run or cry. "Why me? Why not someone older, smarter, someone who understands all this?" "You understood more than you knew. You did not command, you listened. You did not conquer, you harmonized. You led without knowing, and that is the rarest leadership of all." He stood again and extended a hand, translucent and shimmering. "The high lattice has ratified your succession. Your mind has shaped futures before your voice ever claimed them." His voice trembled. "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" He bowed his head. You have already healed what others could not. Behind him, the light within the rift deepened into a tunnel of spiraling violet and indigo. Symbols shimmered along its edges. Words she somehow understood without reading. Names, coordinates, decisions, consequences, all connected to her. "What happens if I go?" she whispered. "You enter your inheritance," he said. "Not as prisoner, not as tool, as Empress. I don't want to leave my parents. Your presence will not erase your origin. You will still be of Earth. But now, Earth shall be of you." She hesitated. Then she remembered the governors who had listened to her voice, the colonies that had chosen peace, the cultures she had connected through poetry and food and forgotten songs. She remembered the warmth of seeing the loyalty index rise because she chose compassion over control. And the faces, real faces, that had looked to her decisions with hope. She took his hand. Light engulfed her. She felt no motion, no weight, no fear, just expansion. Her thoughts stretched, as if her mind had been confined in a bottle all her life and was now pouring into the ocean. She saw stars not as pinpricks in the sky, but as cities in the dark. She felt planets like pulses on a galactic wrist. The minds of distant species brushed against hers, curious, cautious, and finally, welcoming. When the light faded, she stood beneath a sky not her own. Above her was a crystalline dome that shimmered with refracted constellations. The floor beneath her feet pulsed with warmth. Around her, towering spires of radiant glass spiraled into the heavens. Dozens of Thalkesh figures waited in a circle, their eyes cast downward in solemn respect. "This is the citadel of Accord," the emissary said, "where only empresses may walk." She turned slowly, the weight of the title settling onto her shoulders like a second skin. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Because the galaxy has not needed a throne," he answered. "It has needed a heart." A platform rose beneath her feet. A beam of light touched her forehead. Images from her memories flashed. Her mother's voice calling from downstairs, the soft creak of her childhood bed. The moment she first opened the game and thought it was just pixels. And with each memory, a thread of light formed, weaving itself into her crown. Not of metal, but of energy, forged from every choice she had made. And now it settled on her brow. The Thalkesh bowed in unison. From across the dome a new voice rose, not mental, not translated, but spoken aloud for the entire chamber to hear. Mia Reynolds of Earth, first of her name, voice of the untethered. "By the accord of 12 worlds and the will of the lattice, you are now Empress." She stood silently, heart pounding, eyes wide. "I'm really here," she whispered. The emissary stepped back. "And now, the stars will wait to hear your voice." She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply straightened her spine, turned to face the council, and took her first step forward, knowing that from this day on, everything she said, everything she chose, would echo not in classrooms or message boards, but across entire civilizations. She was no longer the girl who sat alone under the bleachers. She was the one they would remember, long after her planet faded from the stars, and she was ready.